Hey everyone, so I'm back again with a math tip video, and today's video is going to build upon what our last video with Miss Weaver was about making a 10 and the beginnings of place value. I'm going to talk about the progression of numbers and their flexibility and relationships. So let's get started. So we're going to be discussing the progression of number sense and how students can see the flexibility of numbers going from the younger grades all the way up into the higher grades. So let's start with where we left off in our last video about students understanding that 10 ones make a 10. And then they're able to build their understanding of place value. And usually they begin working with place value charts and models. And of course, please use manipulatives to help your students build this understanding. But I'm just going to be showing numbers for today just because I have a lot to get through and I don't want to take a whole lot of time to do that. So just imagine how you would use manipulatives to show this building of numbers, okay? So let's say that you had 32. So students could build 32 with 3 10s and 2 1s. But we want them to understand that this isn't only 30 plus 2, but this 32 could be represented in other ways, like 2 10s and 12 1s. How 2 10s and 12 1s, which has a value of 20 and 12, is still 32. It's represented in a different way, and they would see this with their models, with their cubes, that 2 10s and then 12 1s. And a lot of times if you ask students, is 2 10s and 12 1s the same as 32? In the beginning, they're going to be like, no, it's not. It takes practice with them counting and seeing that and visualizing, oh, wait, yeah, because that 12 1s has a 10 in it, so that is 3 10s and 2 1s as well. And then even seeing it as 1 10 and 22 1s, and that has a value of 10 plus 22. So seeing that numbers can be shown in different ways, that there's different ways to build a number. And then students would eventually get into 3-digit numbers, like for example 465, and they would see that that's 400 plus 60 plus 5. And then giving them experience, seeing what other variations would also give them 465. How could they represent the number in different ways where it still has the same value, where it's still equivalent? So they could say 300s and 16 10s and 5 1s, which has a value of 300 plus 160 plus 5. It's still 465. They could see it as 400s, 5 10s, and 15 1s, which has a value of 400 plus 50 plus 15. That's still 465. Just there's so many different ways that they could show that amount in different ways. They can see the flexibility of numbers, okay? And this is something you could give them one number and just see, and give them manipulatives and see how many different ways that they could build that number. Okay, and then this lends itself to when students begin adding and subtracting with numbers. So in like second grade, when they're adding 3-digit numbers, we don't want to just go straight into teaching them the algorithm, okay? Actually, the algorithm isn't a standard for them to master until 4th grade. So really what we want them to understand is what the process is of adding 266 plus 139. And understanding that means they have 6 1s and 9 1s, which gives them 15 1s. And then they understand, because they've built that number sense of numbers, that 15 1s is 10 and 5. And then they see they have 6 10s and 3 10s, which is 9 10s. And then that has a value of 90. And they can see that they have 200s and 100. So that's 300s. Which has a value of 300. And then they're able to see, okay, well, I have 300 and then 90 and 10. It gives me another 100 and 5 1s. And they can see that is 405. Now, that eventually does lend itself into the standard algorithm. But when students get to that, instead of just being told these are the steps you follow and these are the procedures, they understand what they're doing. They know that 6 plus 9 is that 15, which is 5 1s and a 10. And so they know they can, what that regrouping means. Why are they putting a 1 above that 6? Well, that's because they're putting a 10 that they made in the 10's place, okay? they understand that regrouping process. And then they can see that they have 10 tens, and they know that's a 100. So they understand that regrouping process to be able to get that 405 as their sum. Okay, and this goes for subtraction as well. Okay, so when students are understanding what regrouping is, they're able to see, well, 65 is also 5 tens and 15 ones, all the way back to when they were doing this process. Okay, and they could see that 65 is the same as 5 tens and 15 ones. Okay, that is so important that they have this experience with numbers, seeing them in different ways, because that's going to show them that they haven't changed 65. This is still 65. It's just renamed. It's just shown in a different way. And then they're able to go through the process. And then again, when they get here and they need to regroup, they're able to see that 400s and 510s can also be represented by 300s and 1510s, and how that's still the same amount. Okay, so that whole process is very important for when students get into regrouping with addition and subtraction, as well as when they get into fractions. So we've talked about this a little bit recently, but when students are adding and subtracting, and it involves regrouping, well, let me start with an adding one real quick. So let's say we had 2 and 4/5, and they were adding 1 and 3/5. So they're going to get 3 and 7/5. It's important for them to see that 3 and 7/5 can be written in another way. Okay, it's important for them to see that 7/5 can be decomposed into 5/5 and 2/5. Okay, so which is a whole and 2/5. So they're able to see that they have 3 wholes and 1 and 2/5, which gives them 4 and 2/5. So they see that this amount is the same thing as this amount. These are equivalent amounts. Okay, and that is built on them having the flexibility with numbers, understanding that they can be written in different ways, a simplified form and a not simplified form. Okay, and then over here the same. They can see that 4 wholes is also 3 wholes and 6 6. This is still 4. 4 is the same as 3 and 6 6. Okay, they're just showing it in a different way where they have 3 wholes and then 1 whole written as a fraction. But it's that same understanding that was built way back in the earlier grades when students were seeing the different ways to make the same amount. They were seeing the equivalent amounts written in different ways. So then students are able to subtract with that regrouping process. Okay, so I just wanted to go through and show you that process. It gets built on from there as well. And it's just so very important that students see the flexibility of numbers and the relationships that they have, because that's going to progress each year. And so they need to be able to build upon that instead of just following procedures. Eventually, they're going to develop procedural fluency because they're going to understand the process, because they've had experience with working with numbers and seeing numbers in different ways. So feel free to share this video with friends, families, teachers, students, and thank you so much for watching.